Hey guys, welcome back to the 18th episode of 11 Bang Gang. I got a guy here today we're going to have a great talk. His name's T.J Young. So I think this is going to be a little more of a conversation than more of an interview, man. But you did some cool stuff with 2-2 and 3-2 out there on the East Coast, and we're going to talk about that. And then you got a lot of interesting stuff on the backside, but one of the first things I wanted to ask you about, because just timing of this episode, and I'm apolitical on this podcast, but it's relevant to the military. I guess we got to talk about Iran. Whether it's just even, like I had a couple people ask me, is what's the, like, what are we against it or are we for it? And I told them, I said, Iran's not completely innocent with stuff that happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I was like, screw it. Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, no. And I look at things because now I'm a civilian, right? So I wasn't military. I wasn't law enforcement. Now I'm just kind of like a person, right? And so I have to look at things from a person standpoint. And looking at the news, I am also the same way as you. I'm very non-political. I don't lean left or right. I'm very center and very kind of independent on my own. And I take things from both sides and kind of come up with my own kind of thoughts and processes. And so I looked at Iran, and here you had all these incidents coming out where protesters, innocent people were being killed. Mm-hmm. Thousands. I saw some videos where they had these bodies lined up in the street, and people are coming over, like walking down the bodies and looking to see, is that my family member? Is that my family member? And looking at all these dead people, right? And so the world, in my opinion, has to do something, right? And so at what point do you say enough's enough? At what point do we, as a country, step in, and to what degree? And so my personal opinion, not a direct reflection of what I put out on the internet or anything like that, but my personal opinion is I think it had to be done. Yeah. And I think we're at a point now, looking at the news is running with it as a war, this and war that. It's a conflict. It's not really a war yet. We're not there yet. There are some different nations kind of stepping in and getting involved now. And obviously terrorist groups and all these different things are popping up and trying to do their attacks and things like that. But I think we're on the right path. I think we can easily put a stop to it now and kind of accomplish what we set out to do, which is get rid of that leader, get rid of that regime. Mm-hmm. And I think the country has a duty. I think all countries do. I think the UK, I think Spain, France, everybody in Europe, the Middle East, Asia, everywhere, has some duty and responsibility to stop innocent people getting killed, right? Like genocide and different things.
Yeah, I think I think that's right. I mean, it's pretty brilliant. You covered it. I mean, my thing too is that, we see it now, we see it from a different light. Like you said, as a civilian, which is a little bit different. And it's now, I'm looking at like Pakistan attacking the Taliban in Afghanistan. And I'm looking at that, and I'm kind of looking at it like countries are looking like they're on the back foot right now for the first time in as long as I can remember. And, and like you said, what they did to the protesters, that was a human rights issue, and I don't oppose it. And it's like I said, they were guilty from stuff that happened in Iraq. So for me, it was never, I was always going to say, okay, I'll support that, on that note. So,
yeah. And that part of the country is kind of odd anyway, because you look at Iraq and the majority of the people I think that U.S. fought weren't even Iraqis. It was people coming in from other countries.
Yeah.
It was terrorist groups that were training other places like Iran and then crossing borders and coming in and stirring up trouble. So you have this terrorist regime kind of run/supported country that is doing all these things and supporting terrorism and supporting all these, what we would say is evil. And you got to do something, right? So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think it's just funny because I feel like, I don't know, I don't know if you have this in your life, but I have like 5 people who think just because I went to war with the Middle East that I'm somehow the Middle East expert. So every time something like this goes down, all 4 or 5 of those people, guaranteed, never fails, will text me, call me, and hey, what do you think? What's your opinion? And I'm like, guys, my opinion at this point doesn't matter anymore. It's you. You have to make your own, decisions here. I'm not the expert. Um,
Yeah, I'm a big proponent on come up with your own thoughts, your own mind.
yeah,
I'll put stuff out there myself to people, and I'll say that's what I think. You
yeah.
come up with your own opinion, your own thoughts on it. My mom constantly reaches out to me about law enforcement stuff, and I'm like, hey, I'll give you a little bit, but lady, come up with your own kind of mind and thought process here,
Yeah.
and do the research too. I always tell people, I'm not going to be your only source of information. Go out and find the rest,
Yeah.
and get the different sides, and educate yourself on whatever it is you want to know about. So
I like that. I mean, that's one thing that I tell people too is, 2 things can be true at once, and look at things from objective, factual evidence. Like, look at it objectively. Take that 100-foot view, like we learned in the military. Sometimes you have to look at it from that 100-foot view and say, okay, objectively, what does this really look like? And I think that a lot of people just can't take a step back and do that sometimes. So,
yeah, I'm big on facts over emotions. And so I look at everything with the big box mentality, and I try to see different points of view and different things all at once and come up with my own opinion. But I definitely encourage people to educate themselves.
yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, it seems like it felt like no one was doing that for a long time, but I feel like I see more people talking about it today. One of the things I wanted to ask you first is I usually do Facebook stalking research on people, but I did not look too far into your Facebook. So I don't have any idea what you're going to tell me, but where did you grow up at?
Yeah. And I don't put a lot out because I was in law enforcement. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, I'm sure. But I don't use social media. I use social media for what I'm doing now, like this kind of stuff, but I don't use personal social media. But anyway, born in New York, born in the city, raised upstate. And then when I turned about 15 or so, I came out to Colorado, did a couple of years in Colorado where I then graduated. I had every intent and purpose when I was probably about 2 or 3 to get into the Marines, number one, and to become a cop. And so those were always kind of my goals. I got a funny story if you want to hear it, but I don't know what kind of time you got. When I was very young, I almost burned my house down, and the fire department showed up, the police showed up, everybody showed up, and I was probably 5 years old, 6 years old. And I think that was the point where it clicked for me that I needed to get into that kind of field when I get older.
Mm.
And so I left to the Marines at 18. I was delayed entry program at 17. And then I went to California, San Diego for training.
What year did you graduate high school?
2000. I'm a little old.
2000. Okay. Cool. So you joined post 9/11. So 9/11 had no influence on you. I mean, from a young age, that's all you wanted to do. Family. Did you have any family in the military?
I did. I had a grandfather that was in Iwo Jima. And so he was in like all those, he was a Marine. So he was in that theater, Pacific Theater. I don't know what the specifics are. He never talked about it. I never learned about it until after he died. I remember one time I went up into the attic and there was a bolt action rifle, which I assume now was a Springfield. And he probably kept it when he got out of the military, but I saw that. I was like, oh, this is cool. But that's all I ever knew about him. And then I learned after I got out a lot more. When I got out of the military, I started looking into him. He had already died.
Yeah.
And I was looking into that. So,
yeah, man, I know there's like 2 moments in my life where I wish I could go back and know what I know now, and ask the questions that I would have asked now, and unfortunately we don't get those, we don't get those chances again. So it sucks.
Yeah, I actually found out. So I was deployed when I found out he died. So I didn't actually get to come home and see that and kind of do the funeral and all that stuff. But after I got out, I did some research. I did some genealogy stuff and found out he was Canadian of all things. Like I didn't even know. I just assumed he was born and raised in the U.S.
Yeah.
And I found out he was Canadian. So it was kind of funny.
I tell people, me and my wife actually, we encourage people to do that ancestry thing. A lot of people are like, they're taking my DNA, they're cloning me. I'm like, look, okay, dude, it is what it is. You either murdered somebody, you didn't, dude. Like, come on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it
Clone me.
states,
I need a clone too.
yeah, I know. Like, maybe can I get a young body again? Go back 20 years old?
Yep.
Okay, so you joined the late entry. What MOS did you join as?
Funny story. So originally MP,
Okay.
right off the bat, because I knew I wanted to be a cop someday.
Right.
I went down the path of MP, and then I learned about security forces.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, security forces sounds awesome. You know, I'm guarding embassies and nukes and all these different things. I'm like, that's what I want to do. And so they put it in contract, security forces. And then during delayed entry, about halfway through, the recruiter came back and said, hey, we're not going to have that spot for you. And I was like, wow, that kind of sucks. They said, we're going to put you in as 0300 infantry. And when you get to School of Infantry, you're going to be able to go to security forces. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm a 17, 18-year-old dumbass. So I was like, all right, yeah, that sounds like a great plan. And then when I got to boot camp or School of Infantry, I actually found out that was not the case.
No. Yeah. Well, there's a fair share of stories in these 17 episodes already of recruiters telling some cool shit.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did you end up? Where'd you end up?
Yeah, so I did the boot camp San Diego,
Yeah.
Then did the School of Infantry. It was delayed a little bit because I did they're waiting for the next class to start.
Hold on. Before we get too far away. Every guest, I ask them expectation versus reality, and you're the perfect candidate because myself included studied the heritage of our great Marine Corps before I entered because I was just nosy and wanted to know everything. So, and then my dad was a Marine, so I had an expectation. So when you went to boot camp, how was it compared to what you thought it was going to be?
So I 100% knew and was right that I'm going to get my ass kicked and it's going to be hard. I knew it was going to be very physical. It was going to be very mentally demanding.
Yeah.
I knew what to expect having talked to other Marines.
Right.
What is going to happen in boot camp, just not how it's going to happen. And so when I got there, you know, I saw the videos of Marines stepping off and getting on the footprints and, you know, doing all that stuff. I was like, okay, I'm going to get yelled at. All these things are going to happen. I know what to expect with that. It was the first 72 hours that I did not expect. And the first 72 hours is literally no sleep at all. I didn't sleep 1 minute in 72 hours where they just ran me around, cut my hair, got my uniform, signed document. I don't even know what the hell I signed. Got all these shots, did all these things. In the first 72 hours, didn't sleep 1 single minute. And I did not expect any of that.
You know, it never occurred to me that we didn't sleep for 3 days. But you're like the second person I've talked to that's mentioned that we did. I thought we didn't, but I also never wanted to say that because I was like, maybe I just forgot. And then I got sick during those 72 hours and passed out when we were getting shots because I hadn't eaten like 2 meals in a row and I was like run ragged. And yeah, now that I think about it, we didn't sleep.
No sleep. I remember I was sitting on the floor up against one of the racks and I was like trying to doze off and then they'd come in screaming and then we'd do something else. And like, I just constantly wanted to go to sleep, but they wouldn't let us.
Yeah, man. Okay. Anything crazy happen at boot camp? Anything worth mentioning? I mean, a lot of times nobody, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a different time.
Yeah.
So I was on the tail end, I think, of the, you know, we're going to physically beat the crap out of you versus it got a little softer, I think, after kind of 2004, somewhere around there, kind of started to change. And, you know, I had the drill instructor grab me by the throat and slam me on the ground and, you know, literally beat the crap out of me. And I just I don't hear that a lot after kind of that generation going through boot camp. Actually, I heard something about like they were doing like some stress card thing. Did you have this?
No, so I okay, here's what happened with me. Okay, so it did get soft around what you're talking about 2004. But then what happened is all the Iraq and early
Mm,
guys, what they did was in 2008 when I graduated high school, they were off their first rotation as combat vets and now they are drill instructors and those guys tried to murder all of us. And
I could see that.
the only reason I say this is because 3rd Battalion on Paris Island, we were in the back, and a staff sergeant when I was in an infantry battalion in 2-4, he told me that when he got back to the fleet, I told him when I went to boot camp, he was like, I was a drill instructor there, and he told me my entire battalion was under investigation because they were beating the shit out of us. They were punching us. They were doing all kinds of crazy shit. But it didn't bother me because I was like, this is what it is, right? This is the Marine Corps. Like, I was prepared for this. But he told me, he was like, every single one of your drill instructors got NJP'd except one. And I, damn. But he said they were watching you when you were in boot camp, but he said you were like the last. But that went on for years. So I think it just comes and goes, man. I think when it gets a lot of attention, it goes. But I think that it will get soft in a period of peace. I do believe, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Right. Yeah. I pictured Full Metal Jacket. So
Yeah.
it was obviously the influence of my time was the Vietnam movies and all the stuff that came, from the 60s, 70s, and 80s leading up to me going in October of 2000. And so I expected to be beat up. I expected to be treated like garbage, yelled at, that I had expectations for sure, which definitely happened. But I didn't expect the small things. I didn't expect the, I'm not going to be able to call home like ever. We made one phone call when we got there, and there's like a script. You got to read the script on the wall or whatever. My first phone call went to voicemail, so I didn't even get to talk to anybody. And I felt so bad, and it really beat me up, and it screwed me up that the senior drill instructor a couple of weeks later let me use his phone to call home and actually talk to a physical person because I hadn't talked to anybody. And so, yeah, I didn't expect that stuff to be occurring and how it would affect me.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I was talking to another guy about was what shocked me the most, because by the time I graduated in 2008, we had the internet. YouTube was big. We were watching, you could see the videos. I knew what I was getting into, but it was the culture shock. It was like going from I grew up in a Christian household. So it was like going from that to let's murder babies. And I was kind of like, whoa, that was quick for me. And that was one of the things that I just seriously it's different, Yeah,
it's a big shock. And it's a big shock to everything you do, literally how you tie your shoelace, your boots, how you dress, how you do your bed, how you still to this day, what is this? 26 years later, I'm still doing stupid crap. Before I started talking to you, I was looking at my desk and I'm like, I have a mixer thing, and I'm moved it not even a quarter of an inch because it was sticking out over the desk. And I was like, I need it to be flush. I need it to be nice. And I got stuff over here to my right, and I've got it pressed up against this thing and in a straight line facing the same direction. That's all stuff I know came from the military.
Yeah.
And it is such a shock, and it changes everything about you.
Man, yeah, it's a big influence. It really is. It sticks.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, so you do that. You said you went to SOI on the West Coast. Okay, so I went to SOI there. It's got hills, great, love it. How was that? I mean, I'm assuming, you go there, you obviously end up with not an embassy job, but let's find out.
Yeah, so immediately we get there and we're put in the guard barracks. I don't know if you did the guard, camp guard.
Yeah.
So for us, we were delayed. It was 3 or 4 weeks. And so we had to do camp guard. And so we're doing all the camp guard stuff. And then they bring us in for the actual School of Infantry group, the training. And so I go in and they put us in an auditorium and they say, hey, who here was told by their recruiter that they could go to security forces when they get here? And I was like, And there was like 6 of us that did that, right? And so they took us out of the room and they brought us into a hallway into, I believe it was a first sergeant's office. And so the first sergeant calls each one of us in and says, hey, tell me what the recruiter said. I tell him. He calls my recruiter on the phone and he says, hey, staff sergeant, did you tell this Marine that this is what he gets? And he's like, yes, I did. And he ripped the recruiter. Like he was cursing at him, calling him a fucking idiot, yelling at him. He picks up the phone, hangs up the phone on him. And then he looks at me and he says, they violated your contract. They violated your terms. Do you want to go home? You can go home right now. And I was like, I'm already here. I already passed boot camp. I already did all the hard stuff. So yeah, I want to stay here.
Yeah.
And so I ended up staying. They made me a machine gunner, 0331.
Oh, hell yeah.
And so that's what I ended up as.
No shit. Wow. Okay, so obviously something had went down where they had gotten enough people that was becoming an issue.
Yeah.
Man, wow. Well, that's one of the few like got lied to by the recruiter redemption stories I've ever heard. But you still wasn't going to get security forces, I assume. They were
no, yeah, still not getting that because that was just not possible. But I could have went home.
Yeah,
maybe I could have gone back or something. Who knows? But
yeah,
I was like, I'm already here. I'm already done. Let's go forward. So
I did not expect that story to turn out that way. Wow, no shit. Dang. Anyway, okay. Well, so you picked machine gun. Why? I mean, you I'm assuming you could have went regular 03.
They picked it for me. I had no choice in that one.
Okay.
And so they gave me 31, and I don't know if the thought process was because I was a bigger guy, maybe I should have something bigger. Obviously, the mortars are bigger than that, and usually, at least I found that the corn-fed inbred guys were the mortar guys because they were huge and they were able to carry the tubes and the tripods and all that stuff. So, but yeah, they made me machine gunner, and then it bit me in the ass later when I got to the fleet.
Yeah, no shit. Okay. Now, how big a dude are you?
At the time, I was 180, 5'10".
Okay.
And that was right at the cusp of what they consider to be the height weight requirements.
Of course, you're obese, damn near. Yeah. God, I hated that. I hated that for dudes because I was like $135, and they gave me a saw, but I'm about 5'9". So like for me, it was like the pull-ups and shit, the height weight requirements. I always thought it was such bullshit because there were dudes who could run faster than me. They were way bigger than me, and I'm
right.
Like, that's just bullshit, dude. That dude's in shape. But I heard that
I had
changing that, by the way.
Yeah, there was a guy when I got to the fleet. When I got to my unit, there was a guy. He was probably 230, but he was like built, like ripped. Yeah. He was one of those corn-fed inbred guys, and he could do 20 pull-ups like it was easy. He could do, I forget what the minimum run was
18.
To get a perfect score.
18.
Is it? Okay. So yeah, he got a perfect 300 on his PFD, and yeah.
God. The crazy thing is the fastest dude I knew that ran an 18-minute 3-mile every time. He was from Alaska, and he would carry a pack of Marlboro Reds in his back pocket in his little shorts. He would stop at the halfway point, smoke a cigarette, and turn around and run back. And Staff Sergeant told him if he ever made a 18:01, he would never let him do it again. But he never missed.
That's funny.
He never missed. Fucking whack ass. But anyway, so you do that. You go back to 2-2. That's what, Camp Lejeune?
Yeah, so they, divvied up everybody and said, hey, you're going here, you're going there, you're going there. Me and one other guy were told we're going to the East Coast. Everybody else was West Coast.
Yeah.
And so he and I jumped on a plane and flew out to North Carolina. Yeah, Camp Lejeune.
Were you kind of happy to be on kind of that side of the country, or would you have rather stayed on the West Coast?
Now, what I know, I think I probably would have wanted to be West Coast, or
yeah.
I mean, obviously would have loved to go to Okinawa or somewhere cool. North Carolina, Jacksonville, North Carolina is not cool. There's nothing cool about it. The weather sucks. There was hurricanes. There was all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I didn't really like the East Coast too much. Yeah, no, it was hot. It was muggy.
Yeah.
It's not a dry heat like you saw over on the West Coast, but
Yeah.
yeah, if I could go back, I wouldn't be able to change anything, but I would have liked to.
I felt betrayed, but it turned out good because being from Georgia and I live here now, like I wanted to go to the East Coast. And so when they kept me on the West Coast in 2-4, I was pissed. But then, like, knowing what I know now years later, hell no. I love
Right.
Diego, man. That place was the shit. Learn to surf, do all kinds of cool shit. And so it's funny how that works out. But anyway, so you checking into 2-2 first, I'm assuming. What year do you check into 2-2?
Yeah, that was 2001, kind of beginning mid there, so spring into summertime.
Yeah.
And then I got in trouble day one because we're checking in. They're kind of showing us where our rooms are, and I'm putting my stuff down, and some guy jumps on my back and puts me in a chokehold.
What the?
I hadn't said a word to anybody since I got here. It was definitely like his attempt at hazing, which I kind of later found out, but somebody's attacking me and my brain is like, I need to fight this person.
Right.
Because I don't know who it is. And so I'm fighting him and I'm getting to the point where I'm about to pass out. And I pulled my knife out from my pocket. I had one of these like folding knives and I pulled my knife out and I was like, I said, get off me or I will fucking stab you. And so he lets me go. And he's like, man, dude, I was just joking. I was like, well, I don't know who the hell you are. I don't know what the hell you're doing. You came up from behind me, put me in a chokehold. I thought I'm getting killed or whatever. So he leaves. Sergeant comes in, rips my ass. And then I go see Gunny because we're doing our official kind of check-in, me and the other guy. And Gunny looks at me and he's like, you're going to be a problem, aren't you? Like, come on, man. Like, I just got here. Like, no, I'm not going to be a problem. I'm not going to be a pain in the ass. So I got in trouble day one. That was great.
I was going to ask you what your first impression of the fleet was. So that would have been it. Yeah.
Not great.
Yeah.
I definitely did, you get that kind of guys screwing around with each other and doing different things, but I did not expect to be jumped on day one and have to defend myself. And so it led to issues right up front, but I kind of got past them. Obviously they were concerned about me up front and pissed off that I reacted the way I did, but I grew on them, I think.
Yeah. I think the thing is too, is like when you get to the fleet, the first impressions are huge, because if you, at the point you stayed in long enough to know you became a senior Marine at some point. And so, how like some boots just look like fuck ups right off the bat. And if that's you by accident, ooh, yeah, it's going to make your life suck for a minute. And, I'm just saying, like you said, some of that is unfair. Some of that probably is a little too much hazing. But again, some of it's just the way the system is. And hell, it stayed like that for years. The way you describe it is perfect. But so when does 2-2, when do they rotate? What's your first deployment with them?
Yeah, so we did a lot. We found out we were going to deploy, and then we did a bunch of build-up stuff. So we went up north to Bragg, I think it was, and we did some cold weather stuff. We did the hot weather training out in 29 Palms, and so we kind of all over the place. Yeah, and we did a lot of amphibious stuff, a lot of build-up with tactics and urban warfare and doing all these different things because our deployment was going to be to the Mediterranean. And so we were expected to kind of be in more urban terrain than anything. Mm-hmm. And so we were dealing with all that and doing all those things. And I actually didn't say, but I ended up in a weapons company. And so I was a machine gunner in a weapons company with, 240s, the 50 cal Mark 19, and then we had tow missiles, and then javelins had just come out. Oh, and so we got the javelins in our team too. And we were in Humvees. So we were a combined anti-armor team. They call it CAT platoon.
Oh yeah, CAT platoon. Okay. Yeah, I know exactly what you were doing.
Yeah. So we were lucky in the sense that we had vehicles. Mm-hmm. We're going to drive everywhere for the most part. Yeah. But we had to do maintenance and we were driving vehicles now as opposed to just worrying about ourselves. And IEDs, were more of a thing when we got to Iraq and all that stuff. So it was definitely a different mindset kind of going to deployment and what we would end up doing. We ended up
What MEU?
deploying 24th MEU.
That's right.
And so we started, I want to say we first went to Africa. Might have been, I think it was Kenya, and it was like a dental medical relief thing. So they had like doctors and guys come off the ship. They were treating people. We kind of worked with the kind of local security force, the local military. We got into an interesting safari because nothing happens while we're there. So we're like, we got vehicles. Let's go drive and go do a safari. So we ended up out in this marsh with our Humvees and got attacked by hippos. And so we had to because we got out and we're like walking around and then these hippos attack us. So we run back to our Humvees and we try to drive away. And they had giant centipedes, centipedes, whatever they were, that were like an inch round, thick.
Ew.
And then like 12 to like 15 inches long. And so those were everywhere. It was a weird culture shock for sure. A lot of people crapping into, out in the open and wiping with their hands and, using little puddles and to wash. And it was a way different experience than I expected going overseas for sure. And then we ended up in Europe as well. So Greece, Kosovo, Macedonia, Kosovo, all that kind of area. We did a multinational, they call it K4, multinational police force. And so it was us, Germans, and Austrians were in our little area.
Okay, y'all did like a low combined arms training. Yeah. That's how my first deployment was a MEU too, so it was the 11th MEU. So it was just the Asian version of that. But yeah, like that's why I tell people like go into a foreign country. Like the first one for me wasn't, Iraq or Afghanistan, but like I had that same experience where you see like true poverty or stuff like that, and you're just like, holy shit, dude. That can be kind of shocking.
Yeah, and Kosovo was on the back end of, I guess, a civil war or whatever they had going on. I still don't even really know to this day, but they had an internal thing. And so the K4 was all about patrolling and policing to make sure that there were no more conflicts. And so we would team up with these Germans or Austrians. We'd drive out into villages. And I mean, looked like what Ukraine looks like now. Like if you see some of the kind of Ukraine footage, it's just bombed out buildings, kind of partial foundations. That's what it looked like. And we're just driving around, kind of patrolling. There was one instance where we kind of took machine gun fire. It was machine gun fire that was being fired kind of towards us. And we had to like kind of move and go a different direction. But that was really the only thing that occurred there. There was not a lot of violence. It was fun meeting up with other nationalities. And what's wild is hooking up with Germans and talking about how your grandfathers killed each other, because that was all they wanted to talk about. So that was a neat experience.
Yeah.
And in my case, my grandfather went to Japan versus, the Japanese versus Germans. But yeah, it was wild seeing your old enemies become your new allies.
Did you trade with them with anything?
Yeah, we did a lot of machine gun training with them. And trade.
Trade. Yeah. So we met up with the Australian military when I was in East Timor because they were there. And so we like traded MREs too, and they loved our MREs and we loved theirs. So we would like swap. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah, Germans have wild MREs. We did the same thing. Yeah. So we traded little trinkets and little things and then MREs. And they have like canned food like within their MREs. I mean, this is years ago. I don't know what it looks like now, but this is back in 2002 into 2003. And, canned stuff like full chocolate bars, definitely way better stuff in theirs than ours.
Yeah.
It was a great way to get rid of our crappy ones that we had, like the Thai chicken and all the other MREs that no one ever wanted to eat. So we're like, here, this one's great. This is our favorite.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about giving them a cheese and veggie omelet and being like, "This is the best one you'll
Hmm.
try." That would be hilarious. Damn, missed opportunity. Yeah, like that was dude, that's so funny, man, that you did that. Like, yeah, we had so the Australians had real canned butter. They had real butter in their MREs, and we were like, dude, we're fucking garbage.
Yeah, we were behind the curve for sure with food.
Yeah.
None of the MRE, and we didn't get the good MREs until after my second deployment. That's when they had like we called it the four fingers of death, which were the hot dogs. They had pizza. They had like all these different things coming out, and we didn't have any of that. Ours was all complete garbage from like Desert Storm time, which was leftover. But then they kind of made some new ones that are just equal crap. Not anything good. But then they started coming out with the better stuff. I don't know what you had, but we only had like four that were actually decent.
No, I think from what I understand, I was in during a good time. They had come out with a lot of the new ones and they were pretty good. I mean, to be honest, I never truly really complained like that they were all terrible, but man, I did hear that at the beginning of the war, so that would have been you, that they were like using the overstock from the 90s. That's what, yeah, so that sounds like that tracks, man. Like that sucks, bro.
Yeah, the good stuff was like jalapeno cheddar cheese.
Mm,
You had those little packets.
still had those.
Yeah, so that was the crackers were awful. The little heater was worthless. We used to just blow things up with those.
Yeah.
That was what they were good for. Yeah, it was pretty much garbage food. And
Yeah.
every once in a while we get someplace that has some sort of chow hall or established building or whatever, and we get some actual real food. We get back on the ship after training or doing whatever the little kind of miniature deployment was, and we would get to the good food on the ship because Navy's got to have their good stuff, good food, internet. They got to use the phones and get online. All that stuff was possible there. So
Yeah, it's funny how we don't nobody really talks about the view on here. Like the Navy had that the Navy will go they'll have their shit and like that's what I was telling that guy one time. It's like find you somebody that's Filipino on the ship and you'll get all the hookups, dude. Like that's what it was back in the day. I don't know.
I don't know if you had we had some. I don't know if I should even talk about it. We had some female problems on the ships.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys, yeah. So there was a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A couple of those we had. Our ship was mostly males and mostly like male Marines. And then the other kind of main ship. So I was on the Austin, which is the smallest one.
Oh.
And then the other ship, it was the NASA and the Tortuga. And the NASA had all the mixed, so it was males and females, command staff, all the good stuff on there. The Tortuga was fun because they got I don't know, they hit the ground and broke their propeller, they like fell off the ship, and so we ended up in Bahrain for a while because they had to get their ship fixed.
Yeah.
And so we ended up there, which I just saw was bombed in Iran. So
yeah,
or from Iran.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. That's the crazy thing. It's like, I was on the big deck. So we had like Coke machines and like a ship card, and we'd play poker and transfer money, even though the command was like, you're not allowed to play poker. And the way they would catch people is they would see the transactions and they'd be like, well, you're moving like $5,000 a night. And so, yeah, it was crazy. We did some dumb shit, but you were cat. So what y'all had to do, did you have the vehicles down in the well deck? So
Yeah.
to go down there every time you needed to do something with the vehicles or
Yeah, they were loaded up on the hovercrafts. So we had like a little hovercraft or like a landing vehicle, whatever.
yeah.
And so everything would be loaded up, everything would be strapped down, ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And we just go out there, turn them on. They'd open the back door or whatever. We turn everything on, it exhaust out so we don't kill ourselves, and then do our little maintenance. And we did maintenance every day. I mean, every time we went out, we did training in UAE, we did training in, like I said, Kenya and Kosovo and all these different places. And I mean, it was maintenance all the time.
Yeah.
We were replacing filters and tires and everything. And the Humvees we had, I don't know about you guys at kind of your time. I feel old. Like back in my day, we had Humvees without armor. And so we had no armor. Our doors were like real thin. The floors were real thin.
Yeah.
And as we left, so the Mew is returning home. So we had kind of finished out our time. And on the way back is when Iraq happened. And so then we got diverted, turned around, and went back to Kuwait. And we went through Kuwait to Iraq. And it was just an absolute nightmare because we had no armor. We had no anything. We actually had second chance vests that stopped 9mm rounds. And we would put it over the door. So on the outside and on the inside to stop AK rounds, which they don't do.
Oh, shit. So y'all basically got extended straight on the way back.
Yeah. And for us, it was a 6-month deployment, like a normal deployment. This is before they turned into 9 and 12 months, after us. So when Iraq was going on, everybody was pretty much 9 and 12 months, it seemed like. And so ours was a short, regular kind of Mew, and then it got extended. And then we ended up day 4 going in Iraq.
So what was your thinking on when they extended it? Were you kind of like, let's go get some? Or, I mean, what was the attitude? Or was everybody?
No, I think the majority of people wanted to go home.
Yeah.
And we didn't really, we're not spun up. You have to remember my time is a little different in the sense that we didn't have cell phones. I didn't have a cell phone until like 2005, like an actual real cell phone that I could see news on. There's no smartphones. There's no internet like that. Yeah. Our internet on the ship was very periodic. So we'd have internet one day. We wouldn't have internet for 3 days. It would go up and down in different things. We didn't have news. We didn't have TVs to watch. I had a laptop that was absolute garbage. I paid like $4,000 for it from a company that was based, outside the gate of the base. That definitely took me for some money. And, I had that, but no internet. And so we didn't know what it was about. We didn't know why it was happening. And so the initial thought process is, screw this. We don't want any of that. And there's no reason for us to be there or do anything. I actually had a buddy, talk crap, about my wife because I was married at the time. I just got married in 2002. And so he was like, she's hooking up with other guy. I slapped him in the face. I was like, psh, and I didn't want to fight him because he's actually one of my buddies, but I was like, shut your fucking mouth. And, I hit him. But that was kind of the thought process was a lot of these guys, weren't about it. But then as we spooled up and as we got off the ship and as things were happening, we kind of buckled down for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I can see how that's a morale, like, killer. It's like, it'd be different if you were on the way to a Mew, but on the way back, after you've done all this other bullshit, you done talked about what you're going to eat when you get off the boat. You done made plans. Yeah, I get it. That's real life, man. That's real life. It's not. So when you get to Kuwait and y'all start getting ready to roll into Iraq, I mean, what's the, did they give you like I've always wanted to know this because with the Iraq guys, I feel like a lot of times they're like, we just got in there and they just told us to do. And I'm like, what was the mission though? Because, when we went to Afghanistan, we had a specific area. This is the battalion AO. This is Echo Company's AO. This is the gist of what we're doing. So like, what was the mission given to y'all when you got there?
Yeah, I love the U.S. government. I love the military, specifically the Marine Corps, and they had no idea what they were doing. So it was basically we're on the vehicles, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to go here." We're like, "Okay, what are we doing?" We're just going to go there, and then we would go there, and then we would hear like, because we are anti-armor, and the tanks kind of weren't. We were like the most forward at one point.
Oh shit!
Because we were so mobile, and they told us, hey, there's a battalion of, enemy tanks up ahead. We're like, all right, things are going to happen. And we roll up and they're all abandoned. Like the guard, whatever his guard, royal guard or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
They just up and climbed out of the tanks and ran away. And so there's all these tanks just sitting out in the open, kind of scattered for like miles.
Wow.
And yeah, we're like, what are we doing? Like, are we attacking these things? Are we going to these villages? Are we attacking like, if we see a person, do we shoot them? Like, what are, we had rules of engagement, and that was kind of all we knew, but it was very much like move from here to here. And then if you get resistance, deal with it. If you don't, then we're going to kind of figure out something else for you to do, but we're not really sure what that is yet.
Man. I feel like this is a failure on, I understand now that you explain it like that. I understand it could have just been that the dissemination of when you get like an order, when you do like a 5-paragraph order, it's like hires missions up here. And remember, like, so then they'll be like on the battalion AO side, this is what we're doing. We're blocking for these people. And it's like, I feel like y'all just never got that. Hey, we're really just blocking for 3-5 up the road. Really, that's what we're doing. We're staying on the right flank,
Yeah. And it made me think of, you ever see like the movies or like especially the older films?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they'll show like a map of Germany or Europe or whatever in World War II. And then you'll see like a line like moving where it shows like, this is the enemy forces. These are the Allied forces. And they're like, that seemed like that was all they wanted to do was basically take Iraq and just move the line forward and just keep moving the line,
walk it,
all the way till they get to Baghdad. And then obviously they wanted to get Saddam. So the goal, was to get all the way through there, but they didn't really have plans for things. And you ended up being like driving into a town. I remember, so we're driving our Humvees. We go into a little town. I forget which one it was called. They're all wacky names anyway, but we drive into this town and there's like 300 people in the middle of the road, all very angry with us and wanting us to leave. And I drove into this crowd like, guys, what are we doing? And he's just like, just drive forward. And I'm like, okay, I want to just keep driving forward. Like, what is the plan here? And so we ended up driving, and I got stuck in a ditch because there's so many people I can't see the road. And I drove into a ditch, and the Iraqis actually helped get the vehicle out of the ditch, like pushed it to get it out. And just so we'd leave, like they wanted us to leave. There was no mission that, on a day-to-day basis we had. It was just every once in a while something would pop up and they'd be like, okay, we need you for this.
Wow. Man, that is, God, that's the clearest somebody's ever described it to me. But I've always felt like when I heard people kind of mention stuff like that, I'm always like, is that what it was like? But yeah, so y'all were just clearing objectives. You were just moving the line across.
Yeah, just moving that line forward, just taking territory. I think we went from one direction, and then like the 101st and all those guys were coming from like a different direction, and everybody's goal was Baghdad. And we ended up doing a lot of, because we had vehicles, 2, we had vehicles with weapons. So we ended up doing a lot of things where we would kind of insert people or bring, CIA operatives or whatever they are, like guys that with money that they would go meet the locals and give them money and different things. And I remember going out in the middle of the night, just driving, using MVGs and IR and all that, and driving out into the middle of this desert, popped the doors open, and a bunch of Force Recon guys jumped out and just ran away into the darkness. And we're like, what are you doing? And they wouldn't tell us, but we were like the closest unit at that time to Baghdad. And so those guys were moving towards Baghdad.
Wow.
And it was just stuff that was us constantly and escorting, supplies back and forth, because we were the armored vehicle, the vehicles with weapons. I wouldn't say armored vehicles with weapons, and we would run back and forth. And so we'd go here, we'd go there. There was one instance where I felt like we had a plan. And if you recall way back then, Jessica Lynch. So it was like that convoy that got attacked, and then she got captured. She ended up in a hospital, and they wanted to get her back. And so we were part of the force that I think SEALs and a bunch of guys, Delta or something, went into the actual hospital. We were a decoy on the back end, like in a different section. And so they had us kind of make a big spectacle with all of our vehicles and with all of our people while those guys kind of slipped in and pulled her out. And that was like the only time I felt like we actually had a mission that was specific, that we were doing something.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, yeah, I remember that whole Jessica Lynch thing. What was she? Was she Army?
She was Army, and she was like they were all, we use the word pogue, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So person other than grunt or whatever.
Build up.
And so they were all like, I don't know, maintenance and supply people and everything else. And so they were in a convoy of big trucks, I guess, by themselves, and they got attacked and maybe hit an IED or I don't remember the whole story, but yeah, they took her to the hospital to treat her because she was injured.
Yeah.
And nobody there wanted to kill her. It wasn't, you have to understand that when we went through, part of the country was very happy we were there.
Right.
They wanted Saddam gone. They wanted, because these guys, Saddam's forces, like his personal guard, all those guys would roll in and just execute people, that they didn't like or were opposing them. And so a lot of the Iraqis were like, hey, we're happy you're here. But then there was little pockets within, all these little towns and villages and everything else that didn't want us there.
Yeah. And
so like Fallujah, Nasiriyah, all that stuff happened while we were there. And that was, I remember we had 1-2, 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines went through, and they were taking like RPG rounds. The back door to like an LAV opened up and took an RPG like into the door, and a bunch of guys died from that. And we were like involved, but in different areas and doing different things and different missions. But there were those little pockets of hate, and it was mostly the major cities. But the littler places, yeah, they seem to like us.
That's interesting. It's kind of similar in ways that, I don't know. I felt like it was that way in Afghanistan too. Like you would have villages that you could drive through 45 miles an hour in a convoy. You knew you'd never hit anything there. You just knew. You knew it was a safe area. And then there were places that you knew if I'm go here, I'm going to get into a gunfight. Like there was a guarantee. So
Yeah.
when do you eventually go to Baghdad yourself?
No, so we were there for about a month, so it wasn't even that long. It seemed like forever. And when I went back and looked, I got screwed out of a day for a ribbon. But because I guess he needed like 30 days and we were there 29 days or something. But we did our kind of missions and did our little thing. Again, they didn't seem like missions to me, but we did a bunch of things. And then they called us back and said, hey, you've been out here so long because you've been on your MEU already. We're going to send you home. Okay. And so we ended up loading back up and leaving. I remember, I didn't tell you this, and I didn't really tell anybody. I don't even know if my wife knows this story. When we first got there, you were kind of talking about impressions and different things. My first impression of Iraq, we rolled in a convoy, and there were Marines, some that had been there a little while. Man, they messed up, like throwing candy for kids in the middle of the road so they almost get run over by cars. Like that was like the games they played and stuff. But I remember rolling down this road, and we stopped in this convoy, and this guy walks up, and this kid is in his arms, dead and like mangled. And I remember him saying in English, you did this. And that stuck with me forever. I still, to this day, I can picture the building behind him, kind of off in the distance. He was on the side of the road where the ditch is. He was in a white kind of shirt, long shirt, and he's holding this kid. And I'm like, you know what? You're probably right. I didn't do it, but we probably definitely did with bombs. Something dropped on this kid.
Something, yeah.
And probably took this kid out. But that was my lasting kind of, as we left, stuck with me the most. Just thinking about those kinds of interactions that I had. And, for the most part, things went okay. We took some rounds here and there. Our little camp got attacked by two idiots with AKs who ended up getting lit up by LAVs, the main guns on the LAVs. And so it was not what other people might experience. And I always say that I actually had more combat in the US than I did overseas.
Yeah.
But I did get a combat action ribbon. And
Uh,
later on, I would find that when I got out, I only had 4. When I got out, I had 13. So
yeah. Yeah. It's funny how that memory though sticks with you because we had a our A&A guys. We got into an ambush with our A&A, and then the A&A shot some guy who was running ammo for the Taliban. It ended up being like a little kid. They brought him to us in a wheelbarrow, and the MO that was with us, I think, couldn't save him. But I always remember, like, I'll never forget that because not because of like the value of it was crazy. It's just there's something about kids. There's something about like in the middle of a war zone, like you could see a dead person, and yeah, it just there's something about kids, man. Like it's terrible, and you know that it's wrong. It doesn't matter, and there's a lot of people that are like, oh well, they can justify it, but it just sticks with you.
well, and this might have been a 5, 6, 7-year-old kid, and in no way, shape, or form was this kid probably running around with an AK
No,
or an RPG. And so 100%, this is definitely, and the amount of mangled body had to have been a bomb, had to have been something exploded. And so, yeah, that stuck with me forever. And then I had one thing happen in law enforcement that stuck with me, and it was also a kid. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think the kids, especially the innocent kids, stick with you the most. I think if you're an officer or you as a citizen shoot a kid today, trying to rob you or whatever, you might feel differently about it. But I think when they're innocent and they definitely didn't do anything, it's probably going to stick with you more.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Civ Cas was always like a thing, and even if it's like um if even if it's like not our fault, even like we would have like locals get blown up by the IEDs the terrorists planted. You kind of feel some way about that too, because you're like, these aren't, you bring some chick in there and you're like, she wasn't planting an IED, because you can just tell, and it sucks because like you said, there's nothing we can do about it, and it's a product of the environment, and the environment's war, and unfortunately it is how it is.
Right.
So when you were there, real quick, I know you kind of talked about that a little bit, but I like to always ask the first time you got shot at, even if it was nothing crazy. Because like the first time I ever got shot at, it was like 3 rounds, but I always remember like from a sniper. But I always remember it. But anyway, I don't like to talk about kills or nothing like that. I think that's dumb. But like the first time you got shot at, like what was this reaction? Because you were like, oh, or the first time you were like, holy shit, this is real. Like this, I could get killed out here, even if it wasn't that big.
Yeah, I think the feeling, the second part of that, I think the feeling was immediate.
Okay.
We had gone to all these different places and did all these different trainings, but now it was a war zone. It was an actual place. And then obviously seeing the kid, and that was like the first day seeing that kid. So it was like, people are dying here. Like this could be real. So I got that feeling right away.
Yeah.
The first shot, it was a sniper took a shot at our trucks, hit one of the trucks. It like hit and skipped off,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't even know. Like we thought it was a rock.
Yeah.
And so when we got to where we ended up, we had each Humvee had a gunner, so I had a person in top,
Mm-hmm.
and so they were taking a shot at the gunner, and we got to where we were at, and there was this kind of mark on the top of the Humvee that couldn't have been a rock, and that was kind of like, all right, now we're getting shot at. Like things are happening,
Right.
and that was very early on. I had an explosion that went past my head. So I've almost died like many times, but and it wasn't even combat. It was a LAV rolled over into a big like radio antenna, like a big
Oh, okay.
power antenna or whatever. And so it was wrapped up in the kind of girders or whatever you call those beams. So they put C4 on it to blow it
Ah,
so that they could extracted out of the thing. I don't know how the hell they rolled a LAV into it, but that's besides the point. I was standing outside the Humvee, and I had my hands on the door, and I'm kind of watching. And I remember they blew it up, and it was like I can't even half a mile away. Like, it was far away, but I remember this screaming piece of metal going, and it went right past my face, and I felt the air on my face that had I stepped left maybe 2 more feet, my head would have gotten taken off. And so that feeling of it being real was definitely constant for sure.
That's a good one. I like that. I like that. Because we had two dudes get electrocuted to death on our position. And so it's like, I tell people all the time, but yeah, and like that's how I've asked people. I've told people like not all deaths were combat related, dude. Like people got killed in accidents and maimed in accidents. Like there was some crazy junk that happened. So that's wild.
Yeah, friendly fire stuff too. A lot of,
Yeah.
and as you got into later Iraq and Afghanistan, you had the bombs and the jets coming in and
Mm.
friendly firing people because of, positions and different things that are going on. But yeah, I mean, all of that is constant. And, somebody could have something roll over on them. Somebody can fall off a Humvee at the top and hit their head. And, when I went in, we had flak jackets on. So we had like the old Desert Storm flak jackets, doesn't stop anything and has no body armor whatsoever. Our helmets were all garbage. And so, yeah, I mean, we could have died easily to probably a bird taking a crap on us from high up if it just hit us just right. Cause it was, like I said, we had no body armor. We had no armor on the vehicles. They gave us sappy plates. We didn't have carriers. So I don't know, you guys had like actual carriers, right? But we never had carriers, but they gave us sappy plates and we put them on the floor of the Humvee in case we hit an IED. That's not going to stop an IED and it's not going to do anything to help us. And for the longest time, because we were driving around so much, every single thing was an IED, right? Like, again, kind of getting into that mentality of this is real. I mean, there's a bag of trash. That's an IED. There's a can of Coke on the side of the road. That's an IED. Like literally everything was IEDs. And even when I got out, driving around in the US, I was like, whoa. And I'd swerve because there's something on the side of the road, right? Like that was just ingrained into us from day one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's funny. They IEDs in Iraq. I remember them talking about them in training, but it got crazy in Afghanistan because when we started using those MRAPs, they would survive IEDs, but they started making the bombs bigger and bigger because you'd get 100 or an 80, 85 ish bigger. I mean, the last episode, the listeners that listened to episode 17, buddy got blown out of an MRAP or a MAT-V, and that's the fourth time in a row I've said that wrong. But yeah, so I mean, it's like, God, but the fact that y'all had no armor, it boggles the mind, dude, because it's like we could get shot at in the MRAPs, no big deal. Gunner could duck, I mean, he could get hit, but yeah, that's wild, man.
My favorite video, because I watch videos daily, but one of my favorite old videos is if you've seen the sniper takes a shot at, I think it was an army guy, he hits him, he goes down, and then he gets up and he gets behind, this door and he's like radioing where these, and then they like blow up the shooter. It's from the shooter's view. I don't know if you've seen this video, but to me, it was just like, if we took a round, any round, AK, literally a pistol probably would have killed us. And so the doors weren't armored, the windows weren't armored. I saw videos of Iraq and Afghanistan where they have, the round hits the windshield and it spiders and it does the whole thing. We didn't have that. Our windshields were like regular car windshields.
Right.
And we had our packs on the outsides of the door just to add a little more buffer, hoping that if something hits it, it'll just be a little bit of a buffer.
Man, yeah. See, compared to just one rotation after, they started getting the thicker Humvees. Dudes had sappy plates. I mean, yeah, because I've got a sappy carrier. By the time I went to Afghan in 2011. Man, that's wild.
Yeah, we had LBVs. So
Mm,
we had there's no armor in those. It's just the straps with magazine pouches.
yeah.
And I had a 9 mil rifle at an M16A2. We didn't even have hollows. We didn't have optics, nothing. It was all iron sights.
Mm.
And yeah, we had MVGs, we had thermals, we had everything, but no batteries.
What
So that was always good too.
on the MVGs did you have?
What? Say that one more time.
Which generation MVGs? So we had PVS 14s. What'd y'all have?
I don't remember what they're called. Sevens, right? Weren't they?
Sevens, PVS sevens. Yeah, that would.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then our thermal. So why we did this, but we put the thermal on the machine guns, and the thermal was like you go to the store, you buy a shoebox, with your running shoes in it. It was about that big,
Mm.
and it was nonsense. Everything we had was nonsense, and just we're not ready. I don't know what the other units had. I don't know if you've ever talked to people from 2003 kind of start, but I don't know if we were just not equipped because we were on a MEU and they didn't expect us to go there. There were some units I know that were already in Kuwait, kind of gearing up to go, ready to go across the line. And we were kind of an afterthought. I don't know if that's why, but yeah, we were not ready.
I think honestly it came down to technology. I think that we learned very quick. I think some units may have been better equipped, but from what I understand, man, like early, like you're talking '03 Iraq, dude, those dudes were literally, yeah, we're bare minimum in that shit. And maybe the Army had better stuff, and maybe it was just the Marine Corps out, and being immune to. You're right. You don't have the top tier stuff, man.
Reminded me of that. What's that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal where he's a Marine? And so he gets deployed, and like guys are getting like pistols sent to them by family members, like different gear and different stuff. And that was happening when we were there.
Yeah,
I know guys were getting like hand me down, grandpa's pistol or dad's pistol or whatever, and they were sneaking stuff in and using that stuff. I had an old M9 from the Army. It was a hand me down.
mm,
Rifle was a hand me down. This M16A2, and yeah, we didn't get the M4 the M16A4s or any of that stuff till later, or M4s. Yeah,
yeah. It's funny because when I got to the fleet in '08, I still didn't get an ACOG until like 2 years in. Like I had iron sights for like 2 years, and then we had the ACOGs in Afghanistan. And then I was one of the first rotations to Afghanistan to take the new H&K 416 that the Marine Corps has. Dude, when I tell you that thing is slick, it is awesome. Great gun.
I think my personal opinion is learning on iron sights is a way better process.
Hmm.
I'm coming from the old school mentality of pistols, rifles, everything was iron sights for me. When I got into law enforcement, everything was iron sights. We didn't get hollows until a couple of years ago in law enforcement. And so, I personally have all my pistols, all my rifles, everything is iron sights. I have one AR with a 4-time and a magnifier and all that. And then I have one pistol that has a hollow on it. And I think you're a better shooter when you start off on irons. We were going to the range, and the only time I actually got shot was at the range. I can tell you that story. But the we're down range, pulling targets up and down. It's 500 out,
Yeah.
and we're getting headshots, we're getting body shots from there with just irons. And so I think it's kind of crucial to start that way,
Yeah.
learn on that, and then go to optics.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm an iron. That's my thing. I like iron. I still have like my 1911's got iron sights. My Glock has a red dot, but anyway, okay, so you get back from when do y'all get back from this? What year?
Same year, so 2003.
2000.
And so we got back, and they had us come in, and guys were talking to us about re-upping and adding, extending and doing different things. They were talking, Iraq was full swing, so they were ready to send Tutu back. So they were like, yeah, you can go, but you need to extend a year because they got to do a build up and training and everything with new people before they go to Iraq. And I was like, you can go F yourself with that extra year. So I was like, I signed up for 4 years. I'm doing 4 years.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, I said, I'm happy with one deployment. Again, I was married now. Didn't want to be away from the wife and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you can go F yourself with that deployment. So they said, well, we'll just go ahead and send you to another unit that's deploying somewhere else and sooner. And I was like, fuck. So I ended up in 3-2. And with 3-2, we ended up deployed to Djibouti.
Hell yeah.
And there was a special forces camp there. And so we were the security force for the special forces camp.
Wow. How long was that? Like 6 months?
Yeah, that was a 6 month. It sucked real bad because just before we went, I fractured my ankle.
Ew.
And so when Iraq happened, I don't know if people have talked about this before, but there's a thing called stop loss.
Mm-hmm.
And so it basically meant that there were no changes, no promotions, no movements. They weren't going to do anything because they needed to evaluate where everything was at, if they had enough people and they had, they're holding people and whatever. And so I got stop lossed and then I got injured. And while that was going on, and then they said, well, even though you're injured, you're going to go. And I got injured on a run. I stepped into a hole in a field. So I was running across the field and it was not figured out until I did a 15-mile hike and then an 18-mile hike. And after that second one, when I was in excruciating pain, I went to the corpsman, kept going. And they finally sent me to the base doctor. And that's when they did the x-ray and they found the fracture.
Yeah.
And so they put me on light duty.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, well, you're going on light duty, but you still need to go. You still need to deploy. So they sent me and I ended up on like a machine gun nest where I wasn't moving, whatever. But because I was on light duty, I couldn't get promoted either. So I was stuck at my rank, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. I was out there running 3 miles a day just to try and like show them that I'm still able to do stuff and try to get off light duty, try to get promoted. Because I felt like, I wanted some accomplishment here.
Yeah.
And I remember they offered for me to re-up and they were going to promote me. And it was like I don't want to say a slap in the face, but I don't want to be given something. I want to earn it.
Yeah.
And my score was high enough. My PFTs, everything was high enough. I felt like, hey, just because I'm injured, I shouldn't, I should still be able to get promoted. I was just kind of pissed off and I don't want to be handed it. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to re-up. And I only did the 4 years that I signed up for. But that second deployment was a mental anguish for me because all that stuff's happening. I'm being told all these different things. I'm hurt. I'm in pain all the time. They're giving me Motrin, which is nothing, right? Give Motrin for everything. And I'm in excruciating pain all day and running on it because I got to show them that I'm still capable of doing something. I'm still part of the team. And I actually got into like a bad mental state, to the point where I was like gun in my mouth, like ready to go kind of situation while I was sitting in the nest. And I remember I had my M9 in my mouth and this guy just walked up, surprised me. I didn't expect it. And I was like, oh, and I put it away. I mean, that would have been it. If he hadn't interrupted me, that would have been it for me. But yeah, I had a bad time with that second deployment.
Man. So I don't understand why y'all were there for that long. It must have been something going on because when we deployed on the 11th, we went to Djibouti because an LCAC got stuck there. And the boats that blow up. And so we had to do a security mission there. And my platoon was on security that night to guard that LCAC. And then the other platoon that did some training out there, but they said they were just working with the local forces. So they must have trained them up enough eventually to where by the time '08 rolled around, we were just stopping in instead of.
Yeah, and what we had was, I mean, the walls were made out of the like concrete, not concrete, but it was like those concrete barrier things where you fill with sand. So it was like the outside was hard, wire mesh, and then you fill it with sand. So those are all the walls.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fairly big compound to the point where we even had internet. We had a bunch of stuff there, and it was connected to an airfield, part of their airport or whatever it was. And so this base was a stepping off. I don't remember what it was called. But it was a stepping off for Green Beret and other kind of spec op guys that they had a section that was classified. And I remember for a while I was guarding the classified section where I would, screen people as they come through, make sure they had the right IDs to be able to get in. And I don't know what they were doing, but they were constantly flying out, constantly doing stuff. I assume going to Iraq or whatever. But um, yeah, it was a legit little place for a while, and
No,
and
the a lot of people don't realize that even during the whole Iraq Afghanistan fiasco for 20 years, and you just reminded me of this, and that this is a great point, is that we had a huge SOCOM presence in North Africa. Actually, that whole Horn of Africa through there. We've still been there, because when I was there on the 11th Mu, we were bombing Yemen, and we were in River City for 90 straight days bombing Yemen, and we had SEAL team dudes on the boat. But they told us if we took a picture of them, they take our phones. But so that deployment, yeah, y'all were basically just gate guards, dog.
yeah, pretty much it was basically what security forces was, but
Mm.
for I got to play security force. Finally, I got it. I got my MOS I was after because I actually got to guard something, and yeah, we monitored. We had perimeter, like posts and little towers up along the perimeter, and we had the front gate with the machine gun, and we had the interior guys watching the classified stuff, and yeah, we just played security forces for a little while.
But so, but you made it. So you didn't give in to the demons. So man, you're out there doing the most boring fucking possible job ever, while also dealing with all the shit from the last deployment. Man, that sucks. Okay, so
Yeah,
back. I'm assuming you're Terminal Lance. You're like, fuck this, I'm out, dog. Um,
yeah. They, like I said, they offered it. I declined it. I said, nope, I'm not. I'm not taking anything I don't get. And when I got out, I want to say, so I was done in August because I did the kind of, you could leave early, a couple months or whatever. I forgot what they call that, early EAS or whatever. And so I packed up my apartment with my wife, and we left 2 months early to come back to Colorado. And yeah, and then very first job I got out of that was um, selling toner cartridges for printers, which is not what you put a Marine infantryman into. Did not enjoy that at all. I was not a salesman. I was like, "You want this thing?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Well, fuck off." Like,
bro.
I'm not a salesman. I'm not going to sell it to you or whatever. So yeah, I did that for a little bit, and then I became a security guard.
Okay.
And they put me at a haunted location, which was fun. And that was my first taste of privatized security, which would come into play later.
Yeah. So was it really haunted? Did it make you?
Yeah. Oh, it was legit.
No,
Yeah.
see, I'm not a believer in that bullshit. Like, you can't convince me.
So the first day, very first day, I'm sitting in a chair out in the middle of this lobby. It's like a big picture, a mini mall
Mm.
that was owned by a church. And so there's like big church auditorium. There's a school in there for the little kids for church school. There's a bunch of stuff. And there's even like a Quiznos sandwich place and like a shipping center, a bunch of things within this building.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting out in the open. I look up, and above me is a figure leaning over this railing. And there's only one way up, one way down on the kind of left side. So I run all the way up there, gone.
Mm.
Another day, I hear piano music playing, and I go to the door, and I can hear the piano playing on the other side of the door. I throw the door open, like, ha, got you, trespasser. There's nobody in there. The room is empty. I was walking down the hallway one time, and I heard footsteps running up behind me. Like, first it was kind of slow, and then it was like sprinting up, like it was going to fight me, hit me. And I turned around with my fists up, ready to punch somebody in the face, and there's nobody there. Yeah. And then I saw a face in a window. I mean, it was legit. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not. I've heard people. I mean, look, man. I mean, were you doing mushrooms as well?
I wish. No, and marijuana wasn't legal yet. So, nope, couldn't do any of that.
Hell yeah. Okay. So how old are you at this point? You've got to only be like 23 to
Yeah. 22, 23. Yeah.
23.
So 2004.
Yeah.
And so 2004, the end of 2004, leading into beginning of 2005. And so I then started to apply to police departments
Mm-hmm.
because, again, my whole goal in life when I was growing up was I want to go fight fire demons with a sword because that's what I learned when I was younger as a Marine. And then I want to become a cop because I almost burned my house down.
Mm-hmm. So what department do you get on with?
So I applied to two different departments, and the first one to get back to me, the recruiter says, "Hey, you were in the Marines?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Me too." I was like, "Cool." He's like, "That's it. That's all. I don't have to ask any more questions. You're automatically hired. We're going to push you through to the." That's the only time in my life that my military service actually came into play and was a huge benefit to me. But yeah, he pushed me through. It was the Denver Police Department in Colorado, and I was there for 12 years.
Wow. During that 12 years, is that when they legalized marijuana there?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a quick question because I gotta, the, all the podcast guests are going to be wondering, was it worse? Or how did that go down? I mean, realistically, did it actually, I'm going to ask this in two different ways. Overall crime, did it go down? And then the second question is, I know the amount of arrests went down because you're decriminalized something that you used to arrest people for, if you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Yeah. Sort of, and no.
Okay.
So basically, leading up to when I got in, it was illegal,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like any amount is illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was kind of like, well, if you got a little bit for you, that's okay, but just don't have big plants and don't have big bags of marijuana, right?
Yeah.
And my mom is the '60s hippie that went to Woodstock, and like I, everybody knows marijuana. I never smoked it. To this day, I've never smoked it in my life.
Mm.
And so I just hate the smell of it. It's
Mm.
disgusting. But when I was out there, I didn't care about it.
Mm.
I caught some, 18-year-old or whatever, and they had some marijuana. I'm like, dude, just throw it away. Like, I don't care. And it was just a ticket pretty much at that point. But then they legalized it. And again, nobody really cared except the bad guys, because what ended up happening was instead of people being arrested or ticketed for marijuana, you then had robberies, homicides, burglaries, different things that picked up because now people are going after dispensaries and, these different, they know that these people in their neighborhood have 15, 20 plants that they can, legally have now or whatever, that they were starting to attack those people and kill those people and rob those people. And so crime kind of went up, but in a different way. Statistic people will probably say otherwise, but I definitely saw when I was on patrol that the more violent, more aggressive stuff, like running a car through a wall to get into a bunch of marijuana was like a new thing.
Mm.
And it was starting to become pretty frequent.
Huh. Okay. That's a fair assessment. I like that. Now, so you had never tried it, but you've never, yeah. Okay. So you're one of the few people I know that like I never did until I got out. Like, so when like I was in the Marine Corps, dudes would be like, "Man, it'd be nice to smoke one," and I'm like, I can't relate, dude. Like I just couldn't at the time, But
Yeah, and I've always been in a position. I was in the military.
mm-hmm.
They drug tested all the time, and they always caught people.
Mm-hmm.
They caught these two guys with coke, and a bunch of people with positive on piss tests or whatever. And then I got into security work where I was armed,
Mm-hmm.
and so now I had a gun again. And then I got into law enforcement and had a gun again, and now I'm doing security work out, in the real world, and I'm armed again, and I just can't have drugs. Yeah. But I would love to be able to get to the point where I'm just like, I don't even care anymore. I'm just going to start doing everything. And, whatever. I accidentally did coke once. I can tell you that story. It's fun.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, yeah, I've never done drugs. And
yeah, I will say that like I honestly really don't like the smell of it. It's one of the few reasons that it kind of bugs me. But like when I finally did try it, I was like, okay, I get it. But I got a buddy who he's a firefighter, and he's like, yeah, I'm just waiting till I retire, dude. He was like, honestly, after this many years, I guess I'll try it once just to see what the fucking hype is all about, because that's kind of where he's at.
Right.
He's like, I've always been. He was in the military too, he's a tanker. But okay, so 12 years. I do got a quick question. You're on the department in Denver. I know you're seeing some crazy shit. So first of all, um, did any of like the way that you were trained in the military, did any of that help you as a cop when you kind of were on the streets? Did any of that overlay at all, or was it kind of like the general situation awareness bled over? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think the mentality for sure. So when I got in, the alpha male mentality was what they wanted. And now they're looking for like the social workers, the librarians, the calm, nice, sweet people. But what they wanted when I went through, it was on the cusp, the back end of old school policing, where the 90s was wild and they used to take criminals in the alleyways and beat the crap out of them and all that stuff. So I was on the back end of that. And yeah, they wanted tough guys. So obviously the physical parts of, fighting and doing all those things definitely helped out. The mental aspect of, I'd gone to war and deployed and did all these things that mentally prepared now for the type of work I'm running into. And some small things kind of came into play, like, building, searching tactics and different things that, we did a lot of mount training and a lot of things in the Marines that you obviously can't lay down covering fire and things like that like we used to, but certain things definitely came into play and were definitely helpful. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think it depends on what department, because I got a buddy who, actually, I'm not going to say anything. I'll say he works at a department, and some of the ARs they got, I'm like, geez, dude, y'all might as well just, bro, grab some flashbangs and some frags, dude, and you're there,
Yep.
Some departments got some serious equipment. But okay, so this is still early. This is before so is this as Denver's kind of transit? Because you stayed there for 12 years. What year did you leave? Just give me a year you left. Real quick.
So I left Denver, but I did 2 more years of law enforcement after that.
Okay.
But I left Denver in 2017.
Okay, so you left in 2017. So you got to see it transition all the way from like whatever it was to all the way, all the civil unrest crap that happened through yeah. I mean, tell me a little bit about all that, like some of the craziest things you've seen on your 12 years there.
Oh man, if you got 12 hours, we can talk about some of the cool stuff that I saw. But yeah, no, it was a daily thing. I worked the worst area, the worst shift, which is overnight, and the worst days, which was weekends.
Man.
And I did that by choice. And I voted that every year that we did votes. And yeah, I mean, I've been shot at more times, than I can count. I ran through gunfire. When an officer was shooting at a guy and the rounds were going past me, and I could hear him snapping over my head and hitting the wall next to me. And, like I said, there's so many times I should have died, and especially on that job. Just some of the things I saw with bodies. And I told you the second thing that bothered me the most was a kid who OD'd, and he was like 14, and he was in this kid's bedroom. He did a sleepover and he took a bunch of drugs. The other kid was like, no, I don't want to do that. And so dad came down and found the kid's friend OD'd and was trying to do CPR. And like, when I got there, it was a young kid, and it screwed me up because I had a young son too. And so I was like, man, this could be him. He could go to a friend's house and get OD'd and messed up.
Wow.
And, it affected me, but the blood, the dead bodies, gunshot wounds to the head, knives, all that stuff. None of that really affected me. It was just the kids that really bugged me. But yeah, I got in police chases all the time. And I was like number 2 in the department for a while of having the authorized chases and, pitting cars. It was fun. It was so much fun. And like you said, there was a transition. So when I started, it was one way. It was at old school. And then about 2010, policing changed. Mm-hmm. And then after 2010, everything got, I don't want to say soft, but it started turning into, people protesting all the time. And we were running around dealing with those, the political conventions were a mess and all these different things were happening. And, it's just constant political and policy driven nonsense that I was like, man, I don't know if this is for me anymore because I just want to get out there and fight crime. And I don't want to fight crime and worry about if I'm okay, policy wise. I do everything right, but how does it look in the media? And if the media and the court of public opinion doesn't like what I did, then they don't like what I did. Right. And so eventually I got out of that department. I did a year of a statewide reserve where I became a captain and I was overseeing a bunch of law enforcement officers. And then I went back one more year because I missed patrol. I missed the things that I saw. And I went back and I was like, no, this is different. It's not like it was.
Mm.
And that's when I decided to retire out.
Wow. So you were captain.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How many kids did you have during that time? If you don't,
I had my, I had my first one in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had my second one in 2010.
Okay. And then, so you didn't, you worked the worst spot. I mean, God, that had to have been, because my biggest fear, like people used to ask me, like, you've been to war, what's your biggest fear? And I would say, my biggest fear is to be shot. At having done a deployment overseas, did 2 other deployments that weren't combat deployments, but the point is you just do all that training, ride all those helicopters, you do all that stuff that you should get killed doing or possibly could, and then you come back here and you're standing in the wrong spot at a gas station at the wrong time at night and you get shot and killed by something you cannot control. And that's my worst fear right there.
And that just happened to somebody. He was a military veteran. I saw it on the news and went through Afghanistan or whatever it was multiple times, came back and then gets killed, on the job. For me personally, like I said, the one time I got shot was at the range.
Yeah.
It was a round.
I want to hear that.
Yeah. I still carry the bullet. So I don't think I'm invincible. I don't think I'm Superman, but it was very strange because, the Marine Corps in their infinite wisdom decided, I don't know if they did this with you guys, but when you fire at the range, they want to put guys down at the other end of the range to pull the target up and down.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They call it the butts.
Yep.
And so we were down in the butts. And while I've, throwing the target up and down, marking it, whatever, I was really tired. It was like 4 or 5 a.m. It was really early. And I had my head down and my hands down between my legs, like kind of right at my forehead. And I hear the ping, like the snap and this like ping. And then the round hits me in the hand.
What the
like right by my head, like literally like 2 inches away from my head. And it hits me on the knuckle. And I was like, ah, and I look down and I see it spinning at my feet at like 100 miles an hour. Like it looks like a little tornado.
Oh.
And I was like, what the hell? And I reach down and I pick up the bullet and it's in like full form bullet. I, to this day, have it in my wallet and I carry it with me every day. And I haven't been, knock on wood, haven't been shot since, but did no damage to me whatsoever. It was like, I don't know if I have superpowers and I just haven't tested the theory out or whatever, but it hit me on the knuckle square and it skipped off my knuckle, hit the ground, and no damage whatsoever. It was pretty wild.
Wow. So it's like it had to have been a deflection on the target, but there's not anything metal on the. I don't think the frame's metal.
The frame is wood, but it had to have gone through and hit something in the back, and then came back at me.
Yeah. Wow, dude, that's an insane one of those. Just wow, that's insane.
Yeah. So I had that. Like I said, never been shot again, but I've had bullets passing by me. I had guys with guns that easily could have killed me. Car chase multiple times. I should have died. I almost drowned one time when it was stupid. I was kayaking, but I ended up underwater and I was like looking up and I was like, well, this is it. This is how I die. And I got pulled out of the water. But yeah, I mean, I should have died so many times and it just never came. And I didn't have the mentality that I would or could die. I mean, I knew I could, but I wasn't afraid of that. My actual biggest fear is that my wife and my kids are going to like leave me. Like I'm going to be by myself. Yeah, I'm going to be alone. And that's always been my biggest fear, still to this day.
Yeah.
But when I was in law enforcement, like I was the first guy through the door. I was the biggest guy. I had a plate carrier when no one else had them. I had a rifle when no one else had them. I was a Marine. I was like trained. I was all this. So I was always the first guy. And I didn't fear death. I was like, if it happens. And I came from the old mentality of the warriors died in battle, right? Like, the Spartans, like all these guys, like this kind of warrior mentality that if I die in battle, so be it. That's what I was bred
Yeah.
for. That was what I'm made for. And I just never had that fear going into law enforcement or even coming out of it. So,
Wow. Yeah, that like I honestly, always felt like law enforcement was invincible until one of my good friends from my old squad in Echo Company, he got killed on the job out in California. But that was like a huge blow to the unit because a lot of us were cops. I was never a law enforcement officer, but a lot of 0311s, man, it's a huge job. All the 03 guys, machine gunner, waterman, a lot of those guys are cops. I know quite a few. And but I talked to I just wanted to ask this because one of my friends who's a law enforcement officer, he went to go get his disability, but he waited like 4 or 5 years. He had been on the department and they told him that his PTSD, they were like, we just can't tell the difference between like your deployment and what you see on the job. And that spoke volumes to me because I'm like, either the VA's playing a cop out or it really is that bad sometimes. And I thought that was pretty crazy, man.
yeah, I think the VA is criminal. And I don't mean the organization's criminal. I think the way they treat veterans is pretty criminal. I think every veteran, and I would love to be in a position to change this, but I think every veteran coming out should be tax free, should be, given all these different benefits, should have free healthcare for life, all these different things. When I went through, like my GI Bill expired. You guys, when you go through, it's
Mm.
life.
Yep.
But for me, it had a time limit, and my GI Bill expired when I was trying to go back to school after the first department I got out. I wanted to go into a different career,
Mhm.
and so I wanted to go to school.
Yeah.
And they were like, "No, it just expired." And so, like those things that the VA and the extensions of the VA and all that stuff, it's just very criminal the way they treat people. Medical stuff is wild. I talk to guys all the time and they're like, "Oh, I tried to get this, I got 10%, or they wouldn't give me this, and they kept sending me back, and I've been going back for months, and it just sucks." And me, I had the fractured ankle.
Mhm.
Still to this day, it's cold outside. I feel it.
Yep.
I probably could have got some sort of percentage. I never tried, and PTSD, all that. I probably could have got something. I could have tried. When I got into law enforcement and I saw that kid thing, I actually went and talked to somebody.
Mhm.
They're like, "Well, maybe you have a little PTSD." And I was like, "Oh, okay." But I was kind of still of the old mentality that I'm just going to fight through it
Yeah.
and just accept it. Like that is the way I am. That is what it is. And I'm not going to, and I don't, this is not the way I feel now, but at the time I was like, I'm not going to be soft and I'm not going to, you know, go to counseling. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do all these things and get all these things handed to me if I didn't earn it. And now I look back and I was like, damn, I probably should have looked at that stuff. I probably should have done something with it for sure.
Yeah, it's funny because the last episode I was just talking to Josh about, and I was like, it's funny because if like 10, 15 years ago, if like me and all the homies in the tent were like, you know how infantry does nothing or whatever all the time. And if I was sitting around and I just said, hey, bros, if you don't love yourself, you can't love other people. They will be like, you are gay as fuck. No.
Right.
Like, but it's like we were talking about. He was like, now that's a strength. You need to be good with yourself. But it's like it's hard to tell young guys, and I'm assuming when you're on the department here, you got that go mentality. You went to Iraq, you did that, you come back, you go to Djibouti. That was a terrible deployment, but you're like, it's a new life, bro. I got a new job, a new career, and you're out there fucking fighting crime like the real Batman, dude. But I will say that my buddy who's on a department said he was like, it is comedy sometimes though. He's like, because you'll be chasing crackheads. And he was like, I had a particular crackhead that every time he showed up, I knew he was going to get naked. So he's like, I just pulled my carbon gloves out. And I'm like, all right, dude, we're going to fight the naked man tonight. So,
Yeah, we had a lot of repeat offenders, a lot of guys that you get the call and you're like, well, I know that's Steve or
yeah,
whatever, like
yeah,
before we even get the info. And yeah, I dealt with that all the time. And being where I was, it was always the same kind of stuff. And I dealt with a lot of shootings and stabbings. And
yeah.
we always joked like, it's not a real party unless it ends in a shooting or stabbing. And that was my area. And so, yeah, I loved it. I had a lot of fun with it.
Mm,
I left because I was going to move out of state. And so when I was going to go, I applied to another agency, and my wife at the time was getting into law enforcement. She was already in 3 years.
okay.
And so she applied, and when I went on vacation, I just never came back. Like
Mm,
I told my department, hey, I'm leaving. I'm going to go on vacation, but when I come back, I'm just going to turn in my stuff and I'm done because I'm going to Oregon. And when I went out there, I did all the testing, did everything, came back. They sent me this letter and said, yeah, you're great. Well, we can take you, but we can't take your wife because she doesn't have enough experience.
ah,
And so I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I ended up looking for other opportunities at that point.
yeah, yeah. So, what you said that was 2017, and then you went and did private security, or
So I did another year of a statewide reserve.
that's
And so it's called the Colorado Rangers,
mhm,
and it's not like the Texas Rangers, but it is a statewide law enforcement agency that has agreements with other law enforcement agencies. So let's say you need patrol, you need assistance with a special event, you need whatever. They call the Rangers, say, "Hey, can you send people?" And then they send people. And so I was a sergeant and then a captain in that, and so I oversaw the Denver metro area guys, which included canines and all sorts of stuff. We had like bomb dogs and all sorts of stuff. It was crazy.
mm,
And then I went back one more year to law enforcement, and I just went out into an open field one day. I was staring out into nothing, and I was like, why am I doing this? And then that's when I left, and then I went into private security.
and do you like private security more?
No.
Oh,
So a lot of private security, you're like, hey, happy ending.
yeah,
No, private security is a lot of contract based.
mm,
And so a lot can come and go. And so with me, I'm currently working for like 7 different employers and grabbing stuff as it comes. So like this week, I might take these 2 days doing this thing. This might be 2 weeks. I do a lot of executive protection stuff. So I ended up like in Montana in different states doing different things, and here in my own state. And that's kind of been my focus as of late. And there's no one week I could work 5 days and I could have 50 hours, 60 hours, whatever. And then 3 weeks could go by and I could have nothing. And so right now I'm looking for more full-time kind of something that is not contract based for sure.
yeah. Yeah, I got two friends who did executive security kind of stuff like that. And I didn't really talk to him in detail, but that makes sense. So like if you're doing like something like that, you're your own boss. So you kind of got to find contracts. And that's honestly how I left the infantry and went and worked in the wing. And when I went and worked in the wing, one of the jobs I picked up, that's kind of how some of that work was like contract based. And I told my wife, I was like, the reason I ended up taking the job on the farm was because I knew it was secure. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the thing about contract work is like, okay, maybe I'll luck out and get a contract, but do I get another one or another one? And that's kind of that unsure work. So,
Yeah, the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I've had work, but yeah, I've had
yeah.
3 weeks of nothing before. And so it varies for sure.
Mm, mm. Are you ever, so what's your eventual goal on that is to find something like long term, I'm guessing, is what you want to do?
Yeah, I've done some supervisory stuff, management. I managed a security company in my state,
Mm,
had like 26 locations, and I had 150 guards, armed and unarmed.
yeah.
So I could see myself in a management role of some kind, maybe, corporate security manager or something like that. But I need something that is a legitimate 40 hours full time,
Yeah.
a paycheck that I know is coming, that I know what it looks like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not going to vary for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. You did so all your time through law enforcement, and then uh you talked about what you do now. Do you still talk to anybody, or do you like, or the better question too is, do you talk to your wife? Because I feel like you're the kind of guy that might tell his wife stuff and talk to her.
So, first part of that question, do I talk to anybody in the military? I haven't talked to anybody since maybe 2006
Mm.
or eight, somewhere around there. I had a buddy that was a very close friend. He was in a different unit. So I was in the weapons company. He was in, I think it was golf. And so the building next to us is where he was at. He ended up like, I don't want to mention his name, but he ended up like skipping town when we were deploying.
Oh,
And so they captured him and they brought him back, and he got in a bunch of trouble for it. But he was a good buddy of mine for quite a while. I haven't talked to him in years since then, but I don't talk to anybody from there. Law enforcement, I occasionally do talk to and run into a few people. My wife's in law enforcement now, and so I do get to talk to her
yeah,
about some stuff. I don't ever have these conversations of my experiences and things with her.
yeah,
I don't know why. I don't know if it's like my wife will look different on me if I tell her the stuff that I dealt with and saw and experienced and all that. And she's never really told me things that she's experienced either. So
mm, mm. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just like, because some people do and some people don't. Like, I guess, do you do any counseling? Do you see anybody? Like, do you talk to any professionals on a semi-regular basis?
I don't anymore. I could probably benefit from it for sure.
Yeah,
There are things that I've gotten over,
yeah,
and that are just like I know they're there, like the two
right.
kid things, like those are just there, and they'll be memories forever,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll always have those.
That's right.
They don't affect me, I don't wake up in cold sweats, and I don't think about it, like that.
Yeah.
Um, there's been stuff I got into, like, you know, we had one guy that we were aiming at, and he had a knife, and he ends up stabbing himself, and like I just see crazy stuff go on that doesn't affect me, but it'll always be there.
Right.
And then, yeah, I mean, just day to day, you know, struggles
Yeah.
as one does. I think the military veterans are, I mean, you look at suicide rates, how high those are, right? So I think just that in general. Now you double that with a law enforcement veteran
Mm.
and the stuff that I've dealt with, that I probably should be a statistic at this point. And I've just kind of been just going with it.
Yeah.
And I got the two kids and the wife that are kind of the only reason I'm here.
Yeah.
Literally, the wife saved me in that drowning. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Oh,
She was the
one that grabbed you.
yeah, she pulled me out of the lake. But I mean, it's without them, yeah, I wouldn't exist. I'd have no purpose, I think, without the family. So
Yeah. Because it's like even if you say, okay, maybe I didn't see too much crazy junk overseas, which, a lot of us, it's not all like the movies and the books, everybody likes to over exaggerate some things, but you still see some crazy shit. But then, like, all those years in law enforcement, dude, that's where you've seen some rough. I mean, that's where it happens, man. That's where all the crazy junk happens. But it's like I tell guys too, like, from like my person, I see somebody at the vet center, and sometimes it's like I tell dudes, like, sometimes I just go in there and I'm like, let me drop some shit on you. This is what's happened in my life. Like, it's not always about, like, things that trigger me. It could just be like, hey, dude, this is what the fuck is going on this month, like,
right.
but
And my military service, and I mentioned this earlier, that Jake Gyllenhaal movie,
yeah.
Jarhead.
Oh,
And so, yeah, so Jarhead, he goes and like he goes through all this crap, he gets all this stuff, and nothing happens.
mm,
And like, he's at the end of they're firing off all the rounds in the sky because they wouldn't get into anything. And like, so my military service is kind of like that. We had a little bit more, but I felt like didn't really accomplish a lot there. Then I got into law enforcement, and it was like completely different
Right.
and life changing, and like I said, I felt like I would die more here than I felt like I would die over there. And I got to the point where I just accepted it. I was okay with it. But now I'm doing security. And so I've kind of mellowed out and kind of gotten away from that, veteran, military, law enforcement veteran mentality. And I'm kind of civilian now. But yeah, I just, I think just talking like this is good.
Yeah.
You said going in and talking to somebody and laying some stuff on them or whatever. But I think even just talking to people like this, coming into, I don't know you any more than I know, your posts online. And when we hooked up on Facebook, we were talking on Messenger and that. And then I watched one of your previous episodes, just kind of get a feel for how these run. And so, or listen to. And yeah, so that like sometimes it's good. Just throw it out there. And now the whole world can listen to it and hear about me and things I probably haven't said to anybody. So it's pretty wild.
I mean, it's like I tell guys, man, like one dude is funny. He's been on and he's a good friend of mine from my old unit. He told his wife was like, "What are you doing a podcast for?" And he's like, "I'm gonna go lay some he's like, "I'm gonna go do some PTSD therapy with Alex." And I was just like, okay. Like, but it's like I tell guys, man, like even if it's just calling up a old homie or just as a trusted person that you trust and you talk to, man, like just being like, "Hey, you know what? Back in the day we did some crazy shit and here's what it was," and
Yep.
but that's why I kind of leaned heavy on like, I mean, yeah, like you've spent way more time with cortisol in your system here in the United States than you ever did in Iraq. And that's wild because that's your everyday life. You live here. Like this war that and I'm not saying like Denver was a war, but you know what I'm saying. Those life-changing experiences didn't happen in a foreign country, dude. They happened on the streets, and that's wild.
Yeah, I think military prepared me, but then the experiences were here. So
Yeah.
I started kicking indoors and finding guns and finding drugs and finding, beat up little children and all sorts of stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you would have expected it in Iraq, you would have expected it overseas. And yeah, it was pretty wild experience here. So
yeah, man, dude. So what are you doing now? So I know you're doing some content creation or so what's your passion on that?
Yeah, and I think it might go into kind of what you were talking about of just getting out there and saying things, right? And so I do a podcast, and it's a video based podcast, and it's all dedicated to military, law enforcement, and security content. And so I run that with my wife as a co-host. She's been on the last couple episodes, and we talk about discussions that relate to those fields, but then we also break down videos. And so, there'll be an officer involved shooting or whatever, and we'll talk about policies, procedures, tactics, different things that, occurred in the video. There are no right and wrong. That's not my purpose. Although the play on words with the name of what I named it is kind of that way. That's the joke of it, because I called it the Friday morning quarterback. So Monday morning quarterback is the guy that has 20/20 vision.
Yeah.
Looks at what you did, talks shit about it, and does all that. That's not what I do. And so I look at it, with the clear view that it's after the fact. I have more information than they did, and I'll never say they were right or wrong.
Right.
And so for me, that's been my thing, and it's kept me going. It's given me purpose. I like to have a purpose in life. And so I'd love to do that full time if it ever gets to that point. But yeah.
Man, I love that because like you're the kind of person that when something like this happens, I listen to podcasts across the spectrum. I listen to left, right, all kinds of stuff. That's how I collect information. I collect all the information and I analyze. And so like something like what you're talking about, like every time one of these shootings happens, I'm like, hold up, guys. Everybody calling me. The first 5 people that called me and say, you were in combat. Why did this officer shoot this guy? I literally have that, dude. And I'm like, I ain't spent a day in law enforcement. Why are you calling me? But anyway, I'm always like, hang on, let's assess the information, give it a day, maybe get some body cam footage. Hopefully, we can look at this from multiple angles. And then, like you said, your experience as a law enforcement officer, you can also say, like, hey, this is the procedure that we use or that was used at this department, and here's why. And I like that.
Right.
That's tight. That's real.
And that's kind of goes into Friday morning quarterback. So Monday morning quarterback was after the Sunday games, the football games, and they had all the clips and all the footage and they did all this stuff. In real life, a lot of the good stuff happens on the weekends. And so what I look at is Monday through Thursday, I start looking at clips and footage and different things. And then I put that into a podcast episode. By then I've gotten more information. I've gotten the different body camera angles, the 911 call, dispatch call. I can put in a request to a department and request that information and get it for an episode, things like that. And just like I said, kind of at the beginning of your episode here, I am very fact over emotion. And so I'm going to view something right or wrong, and even if I have a personal opinion that, man, he probably shouldn't have shot that guy, I'm going to look at it from all different angles and be able to see it from a split second point of view of the officer, but also in the long kind of big picture of, okay, the body cam shows this, the dash cam shows this, the overhead this, the helicopter that, whatever. And I can take all that and put it into my critique, my breakdown, and like you said, add my experiences, my wife's experiences of policies, procedures, tactics, and different things, how they've evolved in policing, and be able to add that to the content.
Wow. I love that, dude. Okay. So I'm gonna put you on the spot here because
Nice.
I didn't know because and it kind of dropped off the news map because all kinds of other shit happened. But the dude who was the VA, he worked at the VA hospital. Remember the guy who kicked the tail light on
Freddie.
Yeah. Okay. I have took into account everything that had happened a week before, but I need to know one critical detail. There was partial photographic evidence, but it was hard to tell on whether the ICE officer took the gun from him. When they took the gun, did he negligently discharge the firearm?
So there is no direct video that shows that.
Okay.
And so what I did was, just like I was saying earlier, I looked at all the different angles. And by the time I actually did a specific breakdown for Alex Pretty's shooting. And so that's up there on the internet. You can find it or whatever. But I looked at all the different angles of all the available footage at the time. This was before the video came out that showed him the 2 weeks prior or whatever it was. So I didn't have that information. I did an update on Alex Pretty with that information, but I looked at everything of the shooting. So I looked at different angles. There was one like from inside of a car. There was one from across the street. There was one up the street on the sidewalk, a person recording by phone. You see him actively resisting. So he's not complying. He's not following commands. He's not getting on the ground. He's not laying still. He's fighting. He's actively trying to get up. The firearm becomes visible to somebody. Somebody says there's a firearm. So he goes to grab it. There's a heavy set guy in a jacket. That's the one that pulls the firearm out from his waistband. He turns, and as he's turning, all happens within about a second. So he grabs the firearm, pulls it, turns, and as he's turning, they shoot Pretty because somebody's saying gun, gun, gun. And so then he takes it and he leaves. You see him on the video. He's kind of walking away and going to some cars or whatever. In my opinion, based on what I've experienced, what I saw, in terms of justification for the shooting, had he not fought, he would have been fine.
Yeah.
I think I'm armed all the time. I've only had one instance in my life where a cop pulled a gun on me because I was armed. And it was because I rescued a kidnapped child, and I put the guy at gunpoint to get the kid back.
Oh.
And when the cops showed up, they thought I was the bad guy with the gun.
Right.
So, but I complied with everything.
Right.
Get down on your knees, put your hands up here, do this, blah, blah, blah. I did all that. And I followed everything to a T. If he followed everything to a T, he'd be alive. And I think regardless of the firearm being present, the problem was he was shifting and moving. And I think the perception from the guys on his left side, not being able to see the firearm, hearing that there's a firearm, they responded by shooting him because they felt like they were in danger.
Right. Right.
And I think the guy that grabbed the gun, I don't think, I don't know, I can't say because I wasn't there and the camera's not close enough. I don't think he says he's got the gun. Like he had taken the gun away and he's unarmed now. And so I think that was probably the biggest fault in that whole thing.
Yeah, but the problem is there's so much. Everyone wants to interject their opinion, and then you find a clip that matches your opinion. You put that clip online. You're like, "This is my opinion." So when somebody reads that, they're like, now you're already kind of opinionized towards that person's opinion because they've already planted it. Yeah. So wow, okay, that sounds like a great show, dude. Though honestly, man.
Yeah, and the one previous I did too. So that was the one where she's in the vehicle and hits the agent and they shoot her through the windshield. And just like what you're saying is something comes out and then something comes out and now you're reevaluating and you're looking at things. There's still a video that the wife shot in that shooting we've never seen. And so she's got her phone up and she's recording running around. We've never seen that footage. I don't know where that is. And I scour the internet all the time. When I see somebody like, oh, there's a person there recording, I'm like trying to figure out who that is, like, and add that to my overall kind of critique or breakdown.
Right.
And yeah, and then after his shooting, that's when the kicking the taillight thing came out.
Yeah.
And we saw the two different angles of that, which was pretty, everybody's like, oh, it's AI. He's wearing the same clothes. He's got the same firearm. This doesn't look real. And then I found footage from across the street, just searching and doing different things. It did not identify him in that footage, but it was him. And I put both footage together on my episode where you can see the exact time of both videos synchronized of what happened. And so it's definitely not AI.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, part of the problem is like you said, but like what you said when you left Denver, you're like, you don't want to do something because once the public makes up their mind, the court of public opinion is super strong. And the problem is like, even if you do the right thing sometimes, and even all the right things, and the worst happens, the court of public opinion may not be in your favor. And that's unfortunate sometimes,
And I've seen with law enforcement on a daily basis, they get into a shooting with the guy that shoots at the cop first. And there's, they kill him or whatever. They, kill the bad guy. And they're out there marching around, justice for this guy, justice for that guy. And it's like, he shot at the officer and the officer returned fire in defense of himself or other people. And they're like, we don't care. And it's like, really? Really?
I mean, the problem is like, I tell people, I'm like, look, dude, like even overseas ROEs are more, you know what I'm saying? Like if a dude presents a gun and points it at you, it's over. Like, and people are like, well, that's war. And I'm like, so what do you want? Officers to get shot? It's just, yeah, without getting into it, man, that's a whole rabbit hole I could go down, but
right.
And like, it's funny, but I will say that one of my buddies did say that who works in the department, he was like, and to be fair, he said there are guys who take it to the extreme. And he said, and they're out there. He's like, he was like, remember when we were, this is a dude that I was in the military with. He was like, remember there were people in the infantry that we thought that they made bad decisions too. And he was like, it's the same way. Cops are the same way, bro. Some people just make bad decisions. And he was like, and unfortunately, it is what it is.
So, well, and I think, it's anything. You look at clerks at a retail store, you look at the, person at the restaurants, the servers, there's bad people everywhere.
Yeah.
And bad people do bad things because they want to do bad things.
That's right.
And sometimes they make it in law enforcement. And sometimes they make it in the military. And sometimes they make it into, federal agencies and everything else. And you just got to weed those people out, identify them, weed them out, and take care of them,
Yeah, man. And you're right. I mean, sometimes it's just humans suck, man. That's just the nature of it, man. And you've seen both sides of that humanity. So what would you say to a guy who is like somebody who wants to get into law enforcement? What advice would you have to a guy who maybe listening to this podcast who's done some infantry time or a lot of us in this field of work to get into law enforcement? So what advice would you give that you would have wanted when you started?
Yeah, and so law enforcement's changed heavily from when I started to the way it is now. Law enforcement in general is an honorable profession. It is something that we need the right people in, that we need to continue to have people in. We're seeing a lot of people getting out, and it's because it's so political. But we need people, good people, to be in law enforcement. And, my son came to me and said, "Hey, I want to be a cop." We said, "Nope, you're going to be a firefighter." So now he's in the Air Force and he's a firefighter in the Air Force. But if someone were to come to me legitimately say, "I want to do nothing more in my life than become a cop," I would say, "Great. And here's some tips." Like I would tell them, how to navigate the waters, specifically for wherever they're going. I can't give you like a broad generalization, but hey, if you're going to this department, keep these things in mind, keep this, thought process in mind, know what you're getting into, know what it's like, and know that decisions are made by people that don't have experience and aren't in your position. They're gonna dictate. City councils, mayors, all these guys that never set foot in law enforcement before are going to decide how you conduct law enforcement. And so as long as the person going in, it's a life goal for them. It has to be a calling. You have to wake up every day and go, "I want to be a cop. I want to be a cop." Not because I want to treat people like garbage, put people in handcuffs, have authority. You have to want to be able to get into law enforcement to legitimately help people. And if that's your goal, if that's your life, go for it. Do everything you can to do it. Get out there and apply, get out there and see people, network with people to, get through to recruiters and things like that to up your chances of getting in. Right now, with the amount of people wanting to leave and kind of, I don't want to say the bottom of the barrel is kind of being scraped at this point, but you have a good opportunity, a good chance of getting in law enforcement right now. And focus on big agencies. Big agencies hire more people. If you have a small agency where you're from in your town or whatever, they might only hire one guy a year. Go to a large agency that hires 50 people in one class and 50 people in another class and another, and they do 4 classes a year. That's the best way to do it. And you're going to get probably more experience, life experience, job experience going into a large department than you would a smaller one that deals with, small disturbances and little type things. Whereas the big department, you might be on a gang unit task force, you might be in drugs, you might be, doing all these things. I highly recommend, the people that want to get into it, just do everything they can.
Yeah, that's that's good advice. That's a lot of good advice. And I mean, the thing is I feel like Georgia's always hiring, dude. Because I think the police academy or the state academy is down where I live, and so I see a bunch of guys. But I'll tell you what, I I got a friend who works for a department in Colorado, and I mean, it's there are some towns that make some decent money if you put the time in, if you put the years in. But yeah. Anyway, well, I appreciate you coming on, man. First of all, plug your podcast one more time. What was that?
Yeah, it's the Friday Morning Quarterback. And so it's available Spotify, iHeartRadio, and then YouTube everywhere. So it's a video based podcast. So you're going to want to watch it versus listen, but you can also catch the audio of it for sure.
Okay. Sounds good, man. But I appreciate you, and I appreciate all the listeners, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks.
Thanks.
For sure.